Okay, welcome back, Warrior. We are still highlighting our copy of the Book of Mormon, and we are on the testimony of the prophet Joseph Smith. So we are going with these colors. This is our answer key for which colors we're going to use. So we keep the pink in our hands always. Oh, actually, I'm going to keep these over here. And then, I don't need orange. And then we will keep highlighting. Okay, the prophet Joseph Smith's own words about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon are: on the evening of the 21st of September 1823, I betook myself to prayer and supplication to Almighty God. While I was thus in the act of calling upon God, I discovered a light appearing in my room, which continued to increase until the room was lighter than at noonday, when immediately a personage appeared at my bedside, standing in the air, for his feet did not touch the floor. He had on a loose robe of most exquisite whiteness. It was a whiteness beyond anything earthly I had ever seen, nor do I believe that any earthly thing could be made to appear so exceedingly white and brilliant. His hands were naked, and his arms also, a little above the wrists. So also were his feet naked, as were his legs, a little above the ankles. His head and neck were also bare. I could discover that he had no other clothing on but this robe, and it was open so that I could see into his bosom. Not only was his robe exceedingly white, but his whole person was glorious beyond description, and his countenance truly like lightning. The room was exceedingly light, but not so very bright as immediately around his person. When I first looked upon him, I was afraid, but the fear soon left me. He called me by name and said unto me that he was a messenger sent from the presence of God to me, and that his name was Moroni, that God had a work for me to do, and that my name should be had for good and evil among all nations, kindreds, and tongues, or that it should be both good and evil spoken of among all people. Yeah, like I would want that to happen to me, right? You have work to do, and you're going to have some haters, and some people are going to love you. I don't know if I'd sign up. Joseph Smith was so brave. Okay. He said, so there was a book deposited written upon gold plates, giving an account of the former inhabitants of this continent and the source from whence they sprang. He also said that the fullness of the everlasting gospel was contained in it, as delivered by the Savior to the ancient inhabitants. Also that there were 2 stones in silver bows, and these stones fastened to a breastplate constituted what is called the Urim and Thummim, deposited with the plates, and the possession and the use of these stones were what constituted seers in ancient or former times, and that God had prepared them for the purpose of translating the book. Again, he told me that when I got these plates, of which he had spoken, for the time that they should be obtained was not yet fulfilled, I should not show them to any person, neither the breastplate with the Urim and Thummim, only to those whom I should be commanded to show them. If I did, I should be destroyed. Why? Okay, so we're going to highlight that one, the word destroyed. We're highlighting it because that's adversarial, right? If you're not being obedient, whose side are you on, right? So it's not even that it is something that was a consequence of our actions, right? And so this is a negative consequence. And why? Because Satan is the one who tempts us to do things contrary to God's will. Okay, so that's why we highlighted yellow. Okay, so while he was conversing with me about the plates, the vision was open to my mind that I could see the place where the plates were deposited, and that so clearly and distinctly that I knew the place again when I visited it. After this communication, I saw the light in the room begin to gather immediately around the person of him who had been speaking to me, and it continued to do so until the room was again left dark, except just around him, when instantly I saw, as it were, a conduit open right up into heaven, and he ascended till he entirely disappeared, and the room was left as it had been before this heavenly light had made its appearance. I lay musing on the singularity of the scene and marveling great at what had been told to me by this extraordinary messenger, when in the midst of my meditation, I suddenly discovered that my room was again beginning to get lighted, and in an instant, as it were, the same heavenly messenger was again by my bedside. He commenced and again related the very same things which he had done at his first visit, without the least variation, which having done, he informed me of great judgments which were coming upon the earth, with great desolations by famine, sword, and pestilence, and that these grievous judgments would come on the earth in this generation. Having related these things, he again ascended as he had done before. Okay, so I'm going to highlight those things in the yellow. Says, great judgments coming upon the earth, great desolations by famine and pestilence. And these grievous judgments would come on the earth in this generation. Okay. And this is just the word right there. Okay. Why? Because we are not keeping the commandments of God. Okay. By this time, so deep were the impressions made on my mind that sleep had fled from my eyes, and I lay overwhelmed in astonishment at what I had both seen and heard. But what was my surprise when again I beheld the same messenger at my bedside, and heard him rehearse or repeat over again to me the same things as before, and added a caution to me, telling me that Satan, getting the yellow marker, Satan would try to tempt me in consequence of the indigent circumstances of my father's family, to get the plates for the purpose of getting rich. So we're going to highlight all that because that is important. This he forbade me, saying that I must have no other object in view in getting the plates but to glorify God, and must not be influenced by any other motive than that of building his kingdom. Otherwise, I could not get them. Okay, so not be influenced by any other motive. I'm just gonna put that in that yellow too, because it's a tactic to get influenced by other motives. Okay, after this third visit, he again ascended into heaven as before. Where am I? And I was again left to ponder on the strangeness of what I had just experienced, when almost immediately after the heavenly messenger had ascended from me, for the third time the clock crowed, and I found that day was approaching, so that our interviews must have occupied the whole of the night. Oh man, hopefully he went to bed on time. Whew, I'm getting sleepy just thinking about his bedtime. Okay, I shortly after arose from my bed, as usual, went to the necessary labors of the day, but in attempting to work as at other times, I found my strength so exhausted as to render me entirely unable. My father, who was laboring along with me, discovered something to be wrong with me and told me to go home. I started with the intention of going to the house, but attempting to cross the fence out of the field where we were, my strength entirely failed me, and I fell helpless on the ground, and for a time was quite unconscious of anything. Okay, so I realized that I want to write adversary and tactics. Why? Because it's important for us to keep an eye on the adversary, because he's sneaky. And that's, since I just, there we go. Pure color there when we're doing stuff. Okay. Here we go. So the first thing that I can recollect was a voice speaking unto me, calling me by name. I looked up and beheld the same messenger standing over my head, surrounded by light as before. He then again related unto me all that he had related to me the previous night, and commanded me to go to my father and tell him of the vision and commandments which I had received. go. I obeyed. I returned to my father in the field and rehearsed the whole matter to him. He replied to me that it was of God and told me to go and do as commanded by the messenger. I left the field. Was of God, of course. I left the field and went to the place where the messenger had told me the plates were deposited. And owing to the distinctness of the vision which I had concerning it, I knew the place the instant that I arrived there. Convenient to the village of Manchester, Ontario County, New York, stands a hill of considerable size, and the most elevated of any in the neighborhood. On the west side of this hill, not far from the top, under a stone of considerable size, they lay the plates deposited in the stone box. This stone was thick and rounding in the middle on the upper side and thinner toward the edges, so that the middle part of it was visible above the ground, but the edge all around was covered with earth. Having removed the earth, I obtained a lever, which I got fixed under the edge of the stone, and with a little exertion raised it up. I looked in, and there indeed did I behold the plates, the Urim and Thummim, and the breastplate, as stated by the messenger. The box in which they lay was formed by laying stones together in some kind of cement. In the bottom of the box were laid 2 stones crossways of the box, and on these stones lay the plates and the other things with them. I made an attempt to take them out, but was forbidden by the messenger, and was again informed that the time for bringing them forth had not yet arrived, neither would it until 4 years from the time bringing them forth and not yet arrived, neither would it until 4 years from the time, but he told me that I should come to that place precisely in 1 year from that time, and that he would there meet with me, and that I should continue to do so until the time should come for obtaining the plates. I don't know which way to go. According as I had been commanded, I went at the end of each year, and at each time I found the same messenger there, and received instruction and diligence from him at each of our interviews respecting what the Lord was going to do, and how and in what manner his kingdom was to be conducted in the last days. At length, the time arrived for obtaining the plates, the Urim and Thummim, and the breastplate. On the 22nd day of September, 1827, having gone as usual at the end of another year to the place where they were deposited, the same heavenly messenger delivered them up to me with the charge that I should be responsible for them, that if I should let them go carelessly or through any neglect of mine, I should be cut off, but that if I would use all my endeavors to preserve them until he, the messenger, should call for them, they should be protected. Okay. Let's pause. Okay, so we're going right here. Carelessly or through any neglect of mine, I should be cut off. Okay, I soon found out the reason why I had received such strict charges to keep them safe, and why it was that the messenger had said that when I had done what was required at my hand, he would call for them. For no sooner was it known that I had them, that the most strenuous exertions were used to get them from me. Every stratagem that could be invented was resorted to for that purpose. The persecution became more bitter and severe than before, and multitudes were on the alert continually to get them from me if possible. But by the wisdom of God, they remained safe in my hands until I had accomplished by them what was required at my hand. When, according to the arrangements, the messenger called for them, I delivered them up to him, and he has them in his charge until this day, being the 2nd day of May, 1838. For a more complete account, see Joseph Smith History in the Pearl of Great Price. The ancient record thus brought forth from the earth as the voice of a people speaking from the dust and translated into modern speech by the gift and power of God, as attested by divine affirmation, was first published to the world in the year 1830 as the Book of Mormon. Loving it. Oh, power of God. Hello. Okay, awesome. And then we're going to just do a brief explanation about the Book of Mormon. Because we're here and we're doing it. And it starts to look so pretty. Look. It's going to look even better because we're going to add other colors. We're also adding blue into the mix. So it's going to look awesome. Okay, here we go. A brief explanation about the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is a sacred record of peoples in ancient America and was engraved upon metal plates. Sources from which this record was compiled include the following. The plates of Nephi, which were of two kinds, the small plates and the large plates. The former were more particularly devoted to spiritual matters and the ministry and teachings of the prophets, while the latter were occupied mostly by secular history of the peoples concerning 1 Nephi 9, 2-4. From the time of Mosiah, however, the large plates also included items of major spiritual importance. The plates of Mormon, which consist of an abridgment by Mormon from the plates of Nephi with any commentaries. These plates also contained a continuation of the history of Mormon and additions by his son Moroni. The plates of Ether, which present a history of the Jaredites. This record was abridged by Moroni, who inserted comments of his own and incorporated the record with the general history under the title Book of Ether. The plates of brass brought by the people of Lehi from Jerusalem in 600 BC. These contained the 5 books of Moses and also a record of the Jews from the beginning down to the commencement of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, and also the prophecies of the holy prophets. Many quotations from these plates citing Isaiah and other biblical and non-biblical prophets appear in the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon comprises 15 main parts or divisions known with one exception as books, usually designated by the name of their principal author. The first portion, the first 6 books ending with Omni, is a translation from the small plates of Nephi. Between the books of Omni and Mosiah is an insert called the Words of Mormon. This insert connects the record engraved on the small plates with Mormon's abridgment of the large plates. The longest portion from Mosiah through Mormon, chapter 7, is a translation of Mormon's abridgment of the large plates of Nephi. The concluding portion from Mormon chapter 8 to the end of the volume was engraved by Mormon's son Moroni, who after finishing the record of his father's life, made an abridgment of the Jaredite record as the Book of Ether, and later added the parts known as the Book of Moroni. In or about the year AD 421, Moroni, the last of the Nephite prophet historians, sealed the sacred record and hid it up unto the Lord to be brought forth in the latter days, as predicted by the voice of God through his ancient prophets in AD 1823. The same Moroni, then resurrected personage, visited the prophet Joseph Smith and subsequently delivered the engraved plates to him. About this edition. The original title, immediately preceding the contents page, is taken from the plates and is part of the sacred text. Introductions in a non-italic typeface, such as 1 Nephi and immediately preceding Mosiah chapter 9, are also part of the sacred text. Introductions in italics, such as in chapter headings, are not original to the text, but are study helps, including, for convenience, in reading. Study helps included for convenience in reading. Okay. Some minor errors in the text have been perpetuated in past editions of the Book of Mormon. This edition contains corrections that seem appropriate to bring the material into conformity with pre-publication manuscripts and early editions edited by the prophet Joseph Smith. Okay, but also trying to publish books back in the day was so hard for peeps. Okay, hopefully I didn't miss anything. And then we're going to start First Nephi tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. And we will be able to highlight all of our things. So for now, this is where we're leaving it. And that's it. Stay strong, warrior.